All right, folks, welcome back to another episode of Into the Lion's Den with today's co-hosts, Mr. Dan Taylor, aka Mr. Clean. Just kidding, he's not bald, but he's squeaky clean
Getting
every
there.
time.
Give it a few more years, I'll be there.
Yeah, you and me both. And Christian Griffith, brought to you proudly by Level Creative Studios and Pride Roofing and Construction. Give me a morale. You rascal.
Getting all fat and sassy.
Just gonna stay at home and cook some soups.
Bake some breads.
We're going to have fun today, guys. We're going to have a lot of fun. So we are going to be moving in the same direction as last week. We were talking kind of just overall sales, the importance of sales in business, and the value of having sales skill. And so today I want to spin into some specific topics, maybe training, maybe sales strategies and tactics, and just some experiences that we can deliver to the population in the midst of all that. So we've got a little bit of a foundation of things that I want to work through, but I feel like we're just gonna
wing it.
We're just gonna wing it.
Let's do it.
Right. But I think maybe the first thing that we should address is what is sales? And if we were to define sales, so I'd say, I mean, if we looked at Webster's dictionary, it'd say something like, the exchange of commodity, good, service, something for monetary value or for an exchange for money, right? So you're delivering what you have, some kind of specialty, some kind of thing, and it's being exchanged at whatever the value you've set that to be in your mind, right? Because all prices are pretty much made up anyways, right?
Yep. It's a fugazi.
It's a fugazi.
It doesn't exist.
But anyway, so that's how Webster's dictionary would define it. I personally, my style and strategy of sales would more be defined as an exchange of emotion or exchange of energy more than anything else. I'm much more of a relationship builder. Even so much, I'm a very wordy person in my sales. In regular life, I'm very tight-lipped. I don't have a lot of conversations all the time. My wife thinks I'm boring as hell.
So I'm the total opposite. So.
So that's from my perspective. But when I turn on the sales gear or whatever it is, and we shift in and we go, I become very verbose, and I like to build connections, and I have a lot more conversations that have nothing to do with the sale and have everything to do with building a relationship, so we can exchange energy or emotion and realize, are we on the same brainwave or not? That's kind of how I sit. What about you?
Yeah, I would agree with you a lot on that. Definitely the relationship building is obviously one of my biggest strong suits, but in the relationship building part, I tend to listen more to somebody, so I really try to talk a little bit less and listen to what they're saying, because they will tell you exactly how they want to be sold. So if you become a really good listener in sales of any sorts, I mean, you have a lot of guys that will come in. If you watch these Grant Cardone videos or just some of these videos, actually I have a customer that I've been chasing for a while. He's calling me back to say yes.
Press pause. Let's keep it on the video. Let's see what Dan
Let's keep it on the video. Hello, it's Dan. Steve, how are you, sir? So you guys ready to pull the trigger on that roof? Okay. Do you want me to send that over to you via DocuSign, or do you want me to drop a copy off to you tomorrow morning to get signed? Okay. If you give me about 40 minutes, I'll send that over to you via DocuSign, and we can get things rolling for you. Yep. Yeah, Yep. Yeah, hopefully it's the easier route. So, but we'll be able to tell once we get everything torn off and what direction we need to go. So I'll get that shot over to you, and then we'll figure out the schedule and get things moving. All right. Well, I appreciate the business. Thank you. All right, bye.
All right.
Boom. Just like
Dan,
that.
ABS, always be
Always
selling.
be selling.
My man. So maybe we'll pick back up on that at some point. Snip it into the video or something. But I wanted to get into one thing. So to respond to what you're saying, the best salespeople are the best listeners.
Yep.
I agree wholeheartedly with that. So I speak a lot more, but it's generally in response to what cues they're given to me. Right.
Yeah.
So I agree with you 100% on that. You know, what I used to tell a lot in sales trainings, which I don't host those as much anymore, is some simple facts, right? God gave you 2 eyes, 2 ears, and 1 mouth for a reason. Use them in proportion.
Yep.
A true dedicated salesman knows that you should probably be speaking 1/5 of the time. You should be absorbing their mannerisms. You should be absorbing their responses, listening, calculating, and asking additional questions. When you're asking those additional questions, they give you one response and you ask and you repeat what they're saying to prove, I have heard you and I'm interested because I want to ask this new question and dive further into it. It opens people up, right? And we can kind of call that the invisible wall, right? I think everybody in this room or everybody listening to this conversation generally has an invisible wall up, right? It's not like you're just walking down the street and you'll buy anything from anybody. So you have some kind of barrier. How do you break the barrier?
Well, when people try to sell me, I'm a lay down. So in the car business, we'd call people lay downs, or they call them floppers. So like a fish just flopping out of the water. So like I don't like to be sold, but if I do like something, you'll be able to sell me very easily on it. So I tell people, I had a pest control guy at my house a few weeks back, and I was like, listen, man, I'm in door-to-door sales as well, and he like tries to rebuttal. I was like, well, I'll let you look at the house. Just give me a price. And he wasn't listening to what I was trying to tell him. I was like, listen, I'll give you your shot. Tell me what you're selling. Tell me how much it is. But he kept on trying to close me. He's like, all right, well, let me just get your signature. Let me talk to your wife. And I'm like, dude, like, I see, like, I could use the product, but you're not listening to anything that I'm saying. It's like, I'm trying to feed my kids dinner. My wife's down the street at game night. It's like, dude, help me out.
Yeah.
And like this kid just kept on. So eventually I was like, you know what, just never mind. But he ended up finding my wife down the street after she left game night. So
I'm a heavy flopper myself.
Right.
Well, and it usually for me it boils down to I want to gauge the quality of the salesperson more than anything. If I know I need the product, I'm going to buy it from them if I know they're a quality salesperson. Right. So I bought pest control. Hannah ripped my ass for it because
was it one of those pest control guys?
Yes, Sela.
Sela.
But the guy was incredibly approachable. Right. He wasn't invasive. He wasn't pesky. His approach was he brought himself down to my emotion level where I was at that day. It was like a Saturday morning. I'm watching the kids. I think Hannah was at the gym. And so, he knew I didn't have a lot of time. So he hit me with the basic facts. And then when I started asking him questions is when he started actually elaborating on things, right? So he took the ball, and every time we'd pass that baton back and forth, or the ping pong ball just kept going back and forth between me and this guy, and we didn't even get to the point where he explained anything to me. I said, "Where's your iPad? Let me sign up. I got to get back to cooking breakfast." Right? And he's like, "That easy?" I was like, "Is that easy?"
That easy.
Right? Because I already knew I need the service. We got bugs and shit all over the place, and I don't want to be, every father in the world is the king bug killer, right?
Oh, every time there's a spider in the house, it's come get this now.
My kids are even worse. My kids are even worse. Hannah is, I think, is the reason. She's like inculcated that fear of everything. But it's like moths. Right, they just lose their shit over moths, right? So anyway, it's like I already knew that I wanted it. So as a salesperson, I know what I want, right? I know what products are going to serve me. I know what things are going to give me back time. I think as a salesperson, you start to create this understanding in your life that time is the most valuable resource that you have. So spend it very wisely. And that's part of that Rich Dad Poor Dad book for Robert Kiyosaki, which is like there are things that you should offload, right? If your time is worth X, you should offload this because you're only spending $20 on it when it would have cost you $1,000 in your particular valued time, right? So, anyways, I'm pretty much a lay down, but there's always
I'm definitely a lay down.
there's always an immediate barrier, and that was one of my hardest things to really understand when I first got into sales. Was like, how do I get somebody? Because when I first started in sales, I was doing business to business, right? Well, I guess if we want to count my very first business, which the IRS doesn't know about because I was a kid and
Kind of like the
I didn't have any.
peddling back the pixie sticks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the pixie sticks and whatever else. But I would walk 2 blocks down. I'd pick up my grandfather or my step grandfather's mower and his little bin that he made that you could put trash bags in, so it makes it easier to dump trash in. And I would just walk down the street, knock on doors, and say, "I'll mow your lawn for $20." And
That's the way
then
to do
if
it.
they said yes to me, then afterwards I get paid, and I'd say, "When do you want me to come back?" And I just kind of built my little
Yeah. Side hustle.
side hustle or whatever you call it. But so that was my first, was door to door. But when I really got in tune with sales and started to love everything about what you're doing in that exchange, was business to business. And when you're going business to business, you have to have an incredibly powerful elevator pitch, and you have to be very sharp, because you're walking into somebody's place of business, and generally when people in their place of business, they're there to do a job. And most of the time their job is to sell a product to somebody else, right? It's not like they're like, "Hey, open the doors, everybody come in here and sell me shit."
Yep.
Right? They're in business mode. And so you have to break down those invisible barriers very quickly. And generally, I would use indirect openers, and that really became a very valuable tool for me in sales, is indirect openers. Like when door knocking, right? I'll pick something out in the yard that I like, and I'll comment on that before I even address the person,
Yep.
right? And it's a unique tactic, because it just kind of takes them out of that initial defense mode.
Yeah. It throws them off a little bit.
So what kind of indirect openers do you use, or do you use them?
Yeah, I do similar things. I love the business to business approach. I think that's something that we're all growing into more. I think that's going to be a huge focus for us for 2025. And typically, if I'm going into a business, and it's totally different than a residential pitch with a homeowner or somebody that are knocking on their door, or if it's a first appointment. So like if like business to business, it's always something about their business. So it's always asking them something like, "Oh, what do you guys do here?" And then like they'll start talking to you and like, "Oh, hey, by the way, my name's Dan," so on and so forth. So like they're almost thrown off, because you're not walking in saying, "Hey, this is so and so with this business trying to sell you this." It's, "Hey, what's going on here?" Or like, "This place looks really cool," and they're like, "Oh yeah, we just built this." So like the Prestige Audi dealership down in Denver. Kind of the same thing. I walked into the Audi dealership about a year ago, and I was like, "Man, this building's super nice." And then the guy that I happened to talk to, he's like, "Yeah, we're building a dealership next door. It's like a $30 million dealership." I was like, "Wow, that's awesome, man." He's like, "Well, what can I do for you? Looking for a car?" And then that's when I was like, "No, actually, I'm not." It's like, "I'm doing this work over here, so on and so forth, just seeing if you guys need anything." And he's like, "Well, I think we're good." I was like, "All right, cool, no problem. Well, just call me if you need anything." And then he calls me a week later. He's like, "Actually, I need a re-roof on my body shop." I was like, "Okay, cool. Like that works."
Okay.
So, and then the same with the residential pitch. It's always like, "Hey, just letting you know, this is what we're doing in the neighborhood." So I just say, "Hey, we're working with a lot of your neighbors," and then I'll kind of go into just talking to them about whatever.
So you're taking that relate and connect point,
Yeah.
and making it even more personal by bringing up their memory of their neighbors,
Yeah.
or their understanding of who's on their street. And
Yep.
If they're trusting you. Why shouldn't I give you a shot?
Yeah, so it's never like dive straight into it. Now, sometimes you kind of have to gauge, like we're talking about, you have to kind of gauge the customer and how their approach is. And you're like, "All right, man, this dude's going to give me 5 seconds. What do I got?" Or this person is going to let me talk to him for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So, and I'll know their whole life story by the time I'm done.
Probably longer than 20 minutes
Yeah.
if you let them.
If you're talking to me, it's probably half an hour at minimum.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but you never know. I mean, everybody has a story, and a lot of people just want to tell their story. So I always err on the side, like, "Listen, I'll listen to you. Like, probably gonna chat your ear off as well and tell you my story, and hopefully we become friends after this." And most of my customers, I mean, I would consider that they're friends of mine. It's not like we're going to hang out every single weekend, but a lot of these people, like I was over at Sam's Club picking up a cake, and I just ran into a customer of mine, and the wife comes up and hugs me. I'm talking to the husband, and it was almost like we just talked, even though it's been a year. So
Yeah.
it's just, you kind of make friends, and those people will stay with you forever.
Yeah. So on this idea of relationship building, I have a funny story when it comes to indirect openers. I'll get back to that, but we'll circle back.
Circle back. We're going to circle back to that one.
But relationship, I think that we could probably categorize, let's set a stage. On one side of this pendulum, let's call them all the different types of salespeople are in this pendulum. On one side, they're the aggressive, pressuring sales folk, which is what most people categorize all salespeople on, and a lot of that has to do probably with Hollywood. Maybe some experiences, but mostly just how they're portrayed in Hollywood, right?
What was the movie with Robert De Niro where he's selling a car? You remember?
I know exactly the scene that you're talking about when he's like,
Yeah.
I'm wasting my time. You know, that guy.
Yeah. He's
I
like,
just don't
come in here,
remember.
ask me all these fucking questions. He's like, know this, that, touch this, drive this, do this, and then you're going to leave.
And then you're going to walk out. Yeah. I can't remember, but
She's like, you can't talk to me like that, sir. I need the manager. He's like, you want the manager? Here's the manager.
yeah.
What does he say? Kick him out. Kick him out.
Yeah. So on that side, we got Robert De Niro in that movie, right? And on the other side, we've got, I wish I could remember the movie, but anyways,
We're going to have to snippet that in. That's going to have to be snippeted in.
the uber relationship, over empathetic sales personnel, right? There's pros and cons to both sides of the pendulum, right? On this side, the pressuring, constant forward focus, never listening type of people is 100% numbers biased person, right?
Yep.
So if the thing is, they're still very successful, right? Because they understand the laws of numbers, or I don't know the right term there, but they understand
Laws of average.
law of averages, whatever. But they understand that if they ask the question enough times to enough people, somebody will say yes. Yeah. But they might have to go through 100 people to get that yes. Whereas somebody on this side, right, they're constantly engaging, they're very empathetic, they're very likable, very charismatic, whatever it is, they might get the ear of 80 of those 100 people. But a lot of the times, because they've built such a love and friendship relationship with this person, they get friend zoned, and they don't ever get to the point where they get to ask the question for the sale. Like, are you ready to sign up, or you ready to pull the trigger, like on your last phone call you just had, right? Everybody, in my opinion, needs to fade somewhere into the middle. You can lean right, you can lean left, but they have to fade somewhere in the middle where you blend both of those strategies, which is constantly finding new opportunities to ask your questions, right? So the law of averages plays in your favor, but always being willing to have conversations that allow you to build a relationship and get more yeses out of those interactions, right?
Yep.
So would you say you lean farther right or farther left?
I would definitely say I lean farther left for sure, in terms of that.
Yeah.
So,
he's no Libby, folks. Yeah.
When I first my real sales career, I think, really started when I got into the car business. Now, you have to think, a lot of people think of like the car business back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, where it was just like literally the Wild Wild West, and you could say, do whatever you wanted, and there was kind of no repercussions.
Hold on. Do we just have an audio issue?
No, you're good.
Okay, it cut out on my side.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
So it was kind of like the Wild Wild West, where like you could say and do whatever you wanted. So when I got into the car business, there was still a lot of those old school car guys that were in the business, but there was also like this new wave coming in, which they call order takers. Mm-hmm. And order takers is probably somebody that's very empathetic, very understanding. They get friend zoned a lot. They don't sell a lot because they are in that friend zone, so they can't ever close the deal. So I was trained by an old school car guy, and he was very direct, very aggressive. And he's like, listen, if you want to make a lot of money, you want to succeed in sales, this is what you need to do. So I remember the turning point where I figured out I did not want to do that. And it was a Labor Day sale. They hype up the sales on Labor Day, where we mark the cars up and then we discount them down. So it's
so
just
they're same price.
It's a Fugazi.
Fugazi.
Yeah, it's a Fugazi again. It's all perception is reality.
Yeah.
And we had pizza. He's eating this pizza. This lady, and it's like mass chaos. We sold, I want to say we were probably selling like 50 or 60 cars that day. So just chaos. This lady comes up, and this guy's name's Steve, and she's like, is anybody going to help me around here? And he's eating this pizza. Now think about like a grimy car sales guy eating a piece of pizza. hair slicked back, hasn't shaved in probably 2 weeks, smells like alcohol from the night before. He might still be drunk. I'm not sure. He finishes his pizza,
Uh-huh.
takes his hand and wipes it on her.
He wipes
Wipes it
on
on her
her.
shirt. And she said, "Did you just wipe your hand on my shirt?" He's like, yes, I did. Follow me. Lady followed him over to his desk, and he made like $8,000 selling this lady a car.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but after that day, I was like, dude, that was the most fucked up thing I think I've seen ever.
Yeah.
That you could treat a customer that way. So I was like, I do not want to be, and he was just a very aggressive, very direct person. And I was like, that's not me. I was like, that's not my style. So I was like, can I figure out a way to still get yeses, to still get people to want to buy my product, but do it in a different fashion? And the answer was yes. And that was kind of what I was talking back to is you treat everybody that comes in as they're your friend, but you also have to have a little bit of that assertiveness and a little bit of that like aggression, but you do it in a totally different manner.
Yep.
So I may be sitting here being aggressive to you, selling you something, but I'm also going to make you feel really good about it. And then when you leave, you're going to be like, shit, I really like that guy.
Yep.
So, and that's where I always like leaned at. So it's always like, you can have that aggression, but you can do it with empathy. And empathy is something I feel like you can't really teach. So it's like if people have empathy. It's natural to some people. Other people, they struggle and they have to constantly tell themselves, okay, be a little empathetic, be a little empathetic. So it's like, I think there's a fine balance on both. But I think like somebody like my wife, she appreciates somebody that's just direct, straight to the point, and done. Me, on the other hand, it's like, I want to have a little bit of conversation before you, like, let's have a first date first. Come on. So,
They bring me flowers
right.
first, but yeah. Yeah.
So,
Okay. Well, I definitely lean sometimes too far left. In my early careers, I was I got friend zoned a little bit when I
Yeah.
first started because I was really uncomfortable with the just that direct question because I had the same perception that other people had, which is like, I don't want to be in sales.
Yeah.
I don't want to be a slime ball. I don't want to be, that guy that's always just scraping for more,
Right.
that friend that you get a call from every couple of months
Right.
that's like, I
Hey,
started a new
right.
multi-level
Yeah.
marketing thing. I was like, I
This
thought you
this
were
could be
calling me
really good.
because you missed me, right?
Right.
No, you want to sell me some shit, right?
And then if you get your friends to do that, dude, you're gonna be rich.
Yeah, exactly. So I lean far. I started. It was kind of not necessarily rocky. I had a great teacher. My mentor in sales. I've referred to him about 100 times. I thought he was a true wizard. I've literally no offense to you. I don't take offense to saying this. He is the best salesperson I have ever met.
Yeah.
Point blank and period. He could literally just get people to do what he said within 30 seconds of meeting him, and they never forgot who he was.
Yeah.
He made such an impression. A
That's
charismatic
great.
person,
Can we get that guy in here or what?
No, he's living on the top of the hill with all the things. He's
Good for
very
him.
successful,
Good for him.
So, but anyways, he taught me some certain things, but that was part of the basis of the training he gave with me is like you have to ask the sale.
Yep.
The difference between a good salesman and a shitty salesman is generally how direct are they with what they want.
Yep.
Right. And it's understood when you're sitting in a sales position, everybody knows. I mean, I'm showing up to a house with a logo on,
Yep.
right? They may have called me out there, but I'm there to sell them my service. So it's already understood that it's there. You don't have to be that uncomfortable with this question, right?
Yep.
You don't have to be that asshole wiping your greasy
Yeah.
fingers on, this lady's shirt, but at the same time, you can have some assumption to what you're doing. You can have confidence to it. So when I say lean further left, what I use that assertiveness, confidence or assertiveness comes around like my personal boundaries within the sale. And what I mean by that is like, here's when I'm going to follow up with you, and here are the things that I don't do. I won't answer the call on a Saturday when you call me unless you call me 3 times. And if you do, it better be because the roof fell in and I
Yeah.
need to help you, that kind of stuff. When I give very direct, confident advice towards material and those types of things, I say it from an experienced position. And those types of the things that they're like, okay, this is somebody who I can trust because their opinion has been weighed against all of the different experience or all the different accounts that they've worked with over time. This person knows what the hell they're talking about. So those are the confident pieces, and then I mix in with all of that, all of this fish on a wall, rock on a wall type of
Right.
building a relationship type of things. So the majority of the conversations I have with my clients have nothing to do with the sale. But when we are talking about the sale, it's very direct and to the point, and with that assumption that they're going to buy the whole time. So I'm not saying, would you like to do
Right.
this? It's more like, when we do this,
Yep.
right? And it's also very confident towards how they should be doing it, because this is how I would do it.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, and maybe you can shed some light on this for up and comers. Do you feel like when you were struggling when you first got started, was it the dollar amount of what you were asking for, or was it actually asking for a sell at some kind of facet?
Both. Yeah. For me, it was very
That's
both.
that's a,
And
it's like a double sword.
yeah,
Just
and what was it's weird about it, right? I come from a very modest family. We didn't have,
headphones are out.
you know,
Got no sound, none.
it's working.
Oh, now it's back.
Might be my foot. I might have put it on your thing. Does that work?
Put the foot on the thing.
Yeah. I put the foot on the thing and it stopped working.
Right.
Bibbidi bobbidi. All right, but anyways, I grew up in a very modest family. We struggled to survive.
Yep.
My parents worked incredibly hard. My work ethic definitely comes from them. But 4 kids, no overwhelming income source, nobody to bail us out, that kind of stuff. We scraped and we clawed to get
Yep.
to where we were, right? So I was uncomfortable with money from the get go, right? It's not like I was very uncomfortable asking my parents for things. Like, there's a reason that my very first job in my life was when I was in like seventh grade, right? And from that point, I stopped asking for things because it was a pain point. It was
Yep.
like I didn't want to put more pressure on my parents. Like, they did a great job for me, but I didn't want to make anything more, whatever. But anyways, that kind of carried into the beginning of my sales career. And what's funny is the first thing that I ever sold, like truly, was $10 gym memberships. Was $10,
Yeah.
right? But it was very uncomfortable for me because I was off site from this location, and I was asking people to give me their credit card information and put it on a piece of paper, and I've never met them before.
Yep.
That was a
Yeah.
hurdle to cross, right?
You're like, yeah, I don't know about it. You look a little sketchy, dude.
Right. But probably a good it's probably a good turning point into another part of the conversation I wanted to take for this, which is that energy and emotion
Yep.
exchange. But I can't even remember why I brought this up, but that you asked.
Yeah.
So I was very uncomfortable with it until I realized that everybody that I'm interacting with already knows why I'm there.
Yeah.
I needed to get an understanding of that, right? And I was really nerdy when I very first started.
Oh,
I'm still,
what changed?
yeah, still very nerdy, very obsessive about things. But when I was like, I think that this is badass,
Yeah.
right? Because I was a very uncomfortable communicator. Like, if we were friends, I'd engage with you. But if I didn't know you, I wasn't going out of my way to
Yeah.
go and talk to you. I'm not Dan, right? I'm
Like, fuck that
I'm
guy.
like, I'll just keep living my
We
life.
just put
right?
my head down and just walk away.
Right. So, but when I saw Nolan, just turn people into like it sounds like fucked up to say this on the podcast, but it was like he made him his puppet and they just
Yeah.
did what he wanted. I don't want to be a manipulator, but I want to understand that. Like,
Yeah.
what is so drawing to that somebody would be like, hey, I met you 30 seconds ago. Here's my credit card. I'll
Yeah.
see you in 9 months when this gym is open, and trust that you're not going to do anything with this
Yeah.
information that has direct access to my bank.
Right.
Right.
No,
So I
that's
needed
true.
to know. So I started doing things like sales journals, right? So I go in and I'd practice a different pitch, and I'd go and I'd meet with whoever's in this shop, and I categorize the shops. I'd be like, this is a retail shop. It's clothing, accessories, blah, 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 blah. And this is the pitch that I used. And here was the responses that I got. And I'd start to kind of jot these things down in the journal. And every time I had a success, I would bring those over to another journal, and I'd say this was successful in this position. And then anything that was a failure, I'd try the same thing. I'd go find another shop that's basically the same thing that they're selling, and I'd try a different pitch until I found one that worked, and I put it into the winners, right? That was rudimentary because I had to refer back to literature and things that I learned, but eventually it kind of all soaked in, and it became like a Rolodex in the back of my head. It's like, okay, you said this is what I say.
Yep.
You said this is what I say. And that's kind of the ultimate plight of a salesperson, is to have that instantaneous Rolodex that just clicks to the thing that you need to say.
Like, yep, this works.
Right.
Check.
Right. So I got real nerdy with it, but back to what I was saying that I want to roll into, which was the energy and emotion exchange part of things. What was interesting about Nolan was that if he approached you, people would mirror it and they'd come closer to him. It was like he was magnetic, right? And so that's why when I said my definition of sales is more like a transfer of energy or transfer of emotion, because as humans, those are things that we gauge our entire life off
Yep.
of. What's the energy of this situation? Does it feel dark? Does it feel dreary? I don't want to be here, right? But does it feel positive? Does it feel like, there's new life here? Does it feel like there's happiness of some sort? I want that, and I get drawn into it. So a lot of our salespeople, they'll say dumb things in our sales meetings all the times, and it sounds like nails on a
Yeah.
chalkboard to me. They're like, yeah, I knocked doors for about 15 doors, but everybody was an asshole, so I drove 15 miles to try a new territory. It's like, are you kidding me?
Expecting for it to change 15 miles down the road.
So you're trying to tell me that every person on a 1 mile or in a 1 mile radius or a 1 square block period all operate the same way and they have the same emotions and the same personality.
Yep.
They were all assholes to you, or was it you that was presenting in the wrong way? Was your energy and your emotion the wrong thing to present to them?
Yep.
Right. I mean, and here's a prime example of that. I've had projects that were next door to each other before, right? Where this person was a doctor, like a surgeon, and this person was literally a hermit who hasn't left their house in 20 years and a hoarder, and they live next door to each other.
Yep.
Those couldn't be
two totally different people.
Stark
Yep.
difference between the two of those, absolute different in every way, shape, and form, but they live next door. There's no such thing as people just having this aura in a neighborhood, right? It all has to do with the salesperson and the energy they bring to the exchange. Thank you all for tuning into this episode of Into the Lion's Den. We appreciate your time, and we hope that you've gathered enough ammunition to go out, fight the good fight, and become a better person every single day. Please like and subscribe, engage in our content, ask us some questions. We'd love to tailor fit the next episode to you.